In the vast darkness surrounding Xylos, Archimedes Station slowly rotated, its illuminated sections creating a pattern of light against the backdrop of stars. The station, a marvel of multi-species engineering, housed representatives from 12 different sentient races, though not always in harmony. It served as a bustling trade and diplomatic center, strategically positioned around a neutral planet whose unusual ecosystem had recently become the focus of intense scientific interest. Kalen stood at the viewport in Security Section 12, his tall, muscular frame silhouetted against the stars. Like all KRYL, he possessed a disciplined mind housed in a formidable body, evolved on a high-gravity world with twice Earth's pull. His skin had the characteristic bluish-gray tint of his species, and the ridge of cartilage that ran from his forehead down to the back of his neck pulsed slightly with the steady rhythm of his breathing. He turned away from the view, his attention drawn to the holographic display showing security metrics across the station. Everything was orderly, as it should be. The KRYL had been among the first species to join the interstellar Concorde, their natural predisposition for discipline and order making them ideal security personnel throughout the settled systems. Kalen took pride in this fact. It validated what he knew to be true, that strength and order were the foundation of civilization. His communicator pulsed against his wrist. "Security Chief Kalen," he responded, his deep voice clipped and formal. "Chief," came the voice of his KRYL subordinate. "We have a situation in Laboratory 7, research deck. Human scientist found dead. Possible homicide." Kalen's expression didn't change, but his inner eyelids flickered momentarily, a KRYL sign of surprise. "Secure the scene. I'm on my way." As the transport tube carried him to the research deck, Kalen mentally reviewed what he knew about Laboratory 7. It belonged to Dr. Eris Thorne, a human xenobiologist studying the microbial life of Xylos. Kalen had met Thorne several times during routine security inspections. Unlike many humans who seemed intimidated by KRYL physiology, Thorne had always been cordial, if somewhat distracted. Typical human scientist, brilliant in a narrow domain, oblivious to everything else. Fragile, too, like all humans. Their soft bodies, lacking proper skeletal reinforcement, seemed almost temporary to Kalen. The laboratory doors slid open. 2 KRYL officers stood at attention, flanking the entrance. Inside, the lab was a chaos of equipment, displays, and specimens, precisely the kind of disorder that made Kalen's ridge twitch with irritation. How humans functioned amid such clutter remained a mystery to him. Dr. Thorne lay sprawled on the floor near a workstation. A pool of crimson blood spread beneath him. The human body had been punctured multiple times in the torso area, where their vital organs were inconveniently clustered. Nearby, partially hidden under a fallen chair, lay a geological analysis tool, its sampling probe bent and bloodied. "Status report," Kalen demanded. "Scene discovered by another human scientist at 0740 hours," his subordinate answered. Dr. Thorne was already deceased. No signs of forced entry. Security systems show no unauthorized access. Kalen nodded, his gaze moving methodically around the laboratory. "And the murder weapon appears to be that geological tool," the officer pointed. "Standard equipment, but modified. The probe has been sharpened and reinforced." Kalen picked up the tool with a gloved hand, noting the precision of the modifications. Not something done in haste. "Who else had access to this laboratory?" 7 individuals, including 3 human scientists, 2 KRYL technicians, 1 Volscian administrator, and Dr. Thorne's assistant, another human named Lyra. Kalen set the tool down in an evidence container. "Bring them all in for questioning. And give me everything on Dr. Thorne's current research." The KRYL officer hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. Security logs show that Thorne was working late with classified materials from Xylos. The logs are incomplete." Kalen's ridge stiffened. Incomplete logs were not a malfunction. They were a deliberate security breach. Someone had tampered with the system. "Find Thorne's assistant first," he ordered. As the officers departed, Kalen remained alone with the body. He knelt beside the dead human, noting the precision of the wounds. Not a crime of passion, but something methodical, almost KRYLL-like in its execution. "What were you working on, human?" he murmured, his gaze moving to the darkened screens of Thorne's workstation. He pressed his palm against the security scanner, using his override. The screens flickered to life, displaying complex molecular structures and simulation data. Kalen was no scientist, but he recognized the signature of something potentially dangerous, a research path marked with multiple security warnings. What he saw made his ridge pulse with concern. Thorne had been studying an adaptive microorganism found only on xylos, one capable of molecular restructuring. The simulations showed it could theoretically alter materials at a fundamental level, strengthening or weakening them based on specific stimuli. The implications weren't lost on Kalen. Such an organism, properly controlled, could revolutionize manufacturing, medicine, possibly even space travel. Improperly controlled, it could become a weapon of unprecedented destructive capacity. His communicator pulsed again. "Sir, we've located the assistant, Lyra. She's in the station's arboretum. Bring her to interrogation room 3. Kalen ordered, downloading Thorne's research data to a secure device. As the information transferred, he caught sight of a small holoframe on Thorne's desk. It displayed an image of Thorne with a younger human female, presumably Lyra, both wearing the formal attire of Earth's premier scientific academy. They were smiling, Thorne's arm around her shoulders in a protective gesture. Humans and their sentimentality. Kalen had never understood it. Among KRYLL, relationships were based on function and merit. You worked with those who performed their duties with excellence. Everything else was unnecessary complication. He deactivated the workstation and headed toward the interrogation rooms, his mind already constructing the most likely scenario. Thorne had discovered something valuable, something dangerous. Where there was valuable research, there were those who would kill to possess it. The Volscians immediately came to mind. Their mining corporation had been lobbying aggressively for expanded rights on xylos, rights that Thorne's environmental research had been impeding. A simple case of corporate espionage gone lethal? Perhaps. But something about the modified geological tool bothered him. It was an unusual choice for assassination. A Volscian would have used something more efficient, a toxin or a proper weapon. No, this felt like something else entirely. Something more human. Interrogation Room 3 was designed for humans. Temperature slightly warmer than KRYLL preference, lighting less intense, furniture scale for their smaller frames. Lyra sat at the table, her posture tense but controlled. She was young for a human, perhaps 30 Earth years, with dark hair pulled back severely from her face. Her eyes, an unusual shade of green, met his without wavering, though he detected the rapid pulse at her throat that betrayed human anxiety. "I am Security Chief Kalen," he stated, sitting across from her. "I have questions about Dr. Thorne." "I've been told he's dead," she said, her voice steady. "Murdered?" "Correct." Kalen observed her carefully. "You were his primary research assistant. What can you tell me about his current work?" "It's classified," she replied immediately. "I'm not authorized to discuss it without proper clearance." Kalen leaned forward slightly, using his size to create mild intimidation. It worked on most species. Dr. Thorne was killed with a modified geological tool from his own laboratory. Someone who knew the lab, knew his routine. You had full access. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't flinch. "You think I killed him? He was my mentor. He was like family." "Humans kill family members with surprising frequency," Kalen stated flatly. "And you haven't answered my question about his research." Lyra's hands, resting on the table, curled into fists. "His research was about saving xylos, not exploiting it. We were studying a microorganism with extraordinary adaptive properties. It could be the key to planetary restoration on dozens of worlds that have suffered ecological damage. Or it could be weaponized," Kalen countered. Something shifted in her expression. "Is that what this is about? You think someone killed him for weapons research?" "It's a theory," Kalen admitted. "The Volscian Corporation would have just buried his research in litigation," Lyra interrupted. "They wouldn't need to kill him. Think about it, Chief. If someone wanted to weaponize his discovery, killing him would be counterproductive. He was the only one who fully understood what he'd found. Kaylin considered this. Her logic was sound, surprisingly so for a human in distress. Then why was he killed? I don't know, she said, and for the first time, her composure faltered. But I do know he was worried. He'd been working unusual hours, restricting access to certain data, even for me. When did this behavior begin? About 3 weeks ago, after he returned from his last expedition to Xylos. Kaylin made a mental note to check transport logs. Did he mention any threats? Conflicts with colleagues? Lyra hesitated. Not specifically, but he did say something strange a few days ago. He said, "To humans, everything is a weapon." I thought he was just being philosophical. Kaylin's ridge rippled with interest. Explain. It was during a discussion about human innovation. He said our greatest strength is seeing potential where others see only the obvious. A pen isn't just for writing. In the right situation, it can be a weapon, a tool, a signal device. She paused. I didn't think he meant it literally. But now you do? I don't know what to think, she admitted. I just know that he wouldn't have been careless enough to let someone attack him with a tool from his own lab. Not unless he was caught completely off guard. By someone he trusted. Kaylin studied her, trying to detect deception. Humans were difficult to read. Their expressions too mobile, their emotions too erratic. But her grief seemed genuine, as did her confusion. I need access to all of Dr. Thorne's research, he said finally. And I need you to identify anyone who expressed unusual interest in his work recently. Lyra nodded slowly. I'll help however I can. But, she hesitated. There's something else you should know. The day before he died, Thorne activated emergency research protocols. He scattered his data across multiple secure servers, with encrypted access keys that only he knew. He was protecting something. Kaylin felt his suspicions deepen. Or hiding something. No, Lyra said firmly. Protecting. Thorne wasn't secretive by nature. If he locked something away, it was because he believed it was dangerous in the wrong hands. Before Kaylin could respond, his communicator pulsed with an urgent signal. Chief Kaylin, he answered. Sir, came the voice of station command. The Volscian representative is demanding to speak with you about Dr. Thorne's death. He's quite insistent. Kaylin glanced at Lyra, whose expression had hardened at the mention of Volscians. I'll be there shortly, he replied. To Lyra, he said, you will remain on the station and available for further questioning. Do not access any of Thorne's research terminals without security present. Am I under arrest? She asked, chin lifting slightly. No, he replied. But you are under suspicion, as is everyone who had access to that laboratory. Cooperate, and this will conclude more quickly. As he left the interrogation room, Kaylin found himself unsettled by the conversation. Lyra had been far more composed than expected, her reasoning sound. If she was innocent, her insights could be valuable. If guilty, she was exceptionally dangerous, intelligent, calculating, and skilled at manipulation. The Volscian representative was waiting in Kaylin's office, a fact that immediately triggered his territorial instinct. The Volscian Drak was tall even by KRYLL standards, his exoskeletal body emitting the faint clicking sounds characteristic of his species as he paced the limited space. Chief Kaylin, Drak's translator rendered his clicks into the common trade language. I demand to know what is being done about this human's death. Kaylin moved to his desk, deliberately reclaiming his space. A full investigation is underway. Why is the Volscian Corporation so interested in the death of a human scientist? Drak's mandibles flared, a sign of irritation. Dr. Thorne's research directly impacted our operations on Xylos. His death raises questions about the security of proprietary information, such as the exploitation rights your corporation has been pursuing. Kaylin asked bluntly. Resource management rights, Drak corrected. Thorne's extremist environmental theories were blocking necessary development. His death is unfortunate, but potentially beneficial for progress. Kaylin's ridge stiffened involuntarily. Are you confessing to murder, Representative Drak? The Volscian's compound eyes pulsed with what might have been amusement. Hardly. I'm merely acknowledging political reality. But Thorne's research data belongs partially to the corporation. We funded some of his early work before his ecological fixation took hold. We expect full access to his findings. His laboratory is a crime scene, Kalen stated. No one will have access until my investigation is complete. The Volscian Corporation has significant influence with station administration, Drock said, his tone carrying a clear threat. Do not test our patience, KRYLL. The law applies equally to all species on this station, Kalen replied evenly, even those with influence. After Drock departed, Kalen received a message from his superior, Captain Groke, ordering him to report immediately. The captain's office was Spartan by KRYLL standards, which meant it was practically empty by human ones. Groke, an older KRYLL with a battle-scarred ridge, stood by his own viewport, hands clasped behind his back. The Volscian representative has filed a formal complaint, Groke stated without preamble. He claims you're obstructing corporate interests. I'm investigating a murder, Kalen replied. Corporate interests are irrelevant. Nothing is irrelevant when it affects station stability, Groke countered. The Volscians provide 40% of our operating resources through their mining contracts. Their concerns cannot be dismissed. Kalen felt his ridge pulse with controlled anger. Are you ordering me to compromise my investigation? I'm ordering you to resolve it quickly and with minimal disruption, Groke said. The human's death is regrettable, but humans die easily. Find whoever is responsible, make an arrest, and let the station return to normal function. And if the evidence points to Volscian involvement, Groke's inner eyelids flickered dismissively. Then your evidence is flawed. No Volscian would risk their corporate standing for one human scientist. Look elsewhere. The humans themselves are the most likely culprits. They're an emotional, fractious species. As Kalen left the captain's office, he felt the familiar weight of conflicting duties. His obligation to the truth pulled against his duty to the chain of command. Among KRYLL, such conflicts were rare. The hierarchy was clear, the rules well-defined. But working with other species, especially humans, had taught him that justice wasn't always served by following orders. He decided to return to the crime scene, to examine it with fresh eyes now that he had spoken with Lyra and the Volscian. The laboratory remained sealed, the body removed, but the evidence markers still in place. Kalen moved systematically through the space, his gaze catching details he had missed earlier. The geological tool hadn't been the only object out of place. Several small items, a datapad, an empty specimen container, a stylus, lay scattered near the body, as though knocked from a surface during a struggle. But Thorne's workstation remained undisturbed, its monitors still in sleep mode since Kalen had accessed them earlier. That struck him as peculiar. If someone had attacked Thorne for his research, wouldn't the workstation show signs of access or tampering? Kalen activated the workstation again, this time diving deeper into the security logs. The interference he had noted earlier wasn't comprehensive. Whoever had tampered with the system had been selective, erasing specific time frames rather than entire data streams. He cross-referenced the missing periods with laboratory access records from the main station system. During one of the gaps, the laboratory had been accessed by a station maintenance worker, a human named Ellis. According to the records, he had come to repair environmental systems 3 days before Thorne's death. Kalen checked Ellis's work orders. There was indeed a record of a maintenance request, but it had been filed by an auxiliary system, not by Thorne or Lyra directly. A potential security breach. He was making a note to question this Ellis when an urgent communication came through from medical services. Chief Kalen, said the Medusan physician, their floating tentacles visible in the holographic projection, I've completed the autopsy on the human, Thorne. The findings are unusual. Explain, Kalen prompted. The wounds were not the cause of death, the Medusan stated. They were inflicted post-mortem. Thorne died of respiratory failure caused by a synthetic neurotoxin, one that would affect only human physiology. Very sophisticated. Kalen's ridge went rigid with surprise. The stabbing was a misdirection? Precisely. Whoever did this wanted you to focus on the obvious physical trauma and missed the true cause. Without a specific toxicology scan, it would have been overlooked. Why run such a scan? Kalen asked. Because I found a nearly microscopic injection mark on the victim's neck. Easy to miss, but I'm familiar with human anatomy. The Medusan's tentacles rippled. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. Chief Kalen. This was a precisely targeted assassination. After ending the communication, Kalen stood motionless, processing this new information. A targeted neurotoxin, effective only against humans. Post-mortem wounds to disguise the true cause. This wasn't a crime of opportunity or passion. It was calculated, professional, and yet the modified geological tool was unusual. Why use that for the misdirection instead of simply making it appear that Thorne had died of natural causes? What was the killer trying to communicate? Kalen's thoughts were interrupted by an alert from station security. Unauthorized access to Environmental Control Sector 5, near officer quarters. He immediately dispatched a team and headed there himself, an uneasy feeling growing. That sector housed the living quarters assigned to Lyra. By the time he arrived, the security team had already secured the area, but the intruder was gone. Evidence of forced entry to Lyra's quarters was obvious. The door mechanism had been expertly bypassed. Inside, Lyra stood amid a scene of calculated destruction. Her personal belongings had been searched, storage units emptied, display surfaces shattered. She was visibly shaken but unharmed. "Are you injured?" Kalen asked, scanning the room for immediate threats. She shook her head. "I just arrived. They were already gone." "They?" Kalen noted the pronoun. "Did you see them?" "No, but..." She gestured to the systematic nature of the search. One person couldn't have done this much damage so quickly. It's too thorough. Kalen had to agree. The search pattern showed a level of coordination that suggested multiple perpetrators. What were they looking for? Lyra hesitated, her gaze moving to a small device clutched in her hand. Some kind of medical scanner, standard human technology. "I think they were looking for this," she said finally. "It's Thorne's personal medical scanner. He gave it to me the day before he died." "Why would anyone want a medical scanner?" Kalen asked, skeptical. "Because it's not just a scanner," she replied. "It's a data storage device. Thorne modified it. He said if anything happened to him, I should keep it safe." Kalen extended his hand. "I need to take that as evidence." Lyra stepped back. "No, he trusted me with it, not station security. Especially not now." "I'm investigating his murder," Kalen reminded her, his tone hardening. "And what if his murderer has access to station security?" she challenged. "What if that's how they knew to come here?" Kalen was about to respond when his attention was caught by something on the floor near Lyra's feet, a small medical injector, not part of the room's original contents. He moved suddenly, pushing Lyra aside and kicking the device away from both of them. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "That's not yours," he said, pointing to the injector. "It's been placed here. Possibly a trap." Lyra's eyes widened as she recognized the device. "That's a standard medical hypo spray, but..." She looked closer without touching it. "It's been modified. The dispersion mechanism has been altered." Kalen called for a forensic containment unit. "Don't touch it. It may contain the same neurotoxin that killed Thorne." For the first time, genuine fear showed in Lyra's expression. "They were going to kill me, too." "It appears so," Kalen agreed. "Which means you're either innocent, or these are your co-conspirators eliminating loose ends." "I didn't kill Thorne," she snapped, the human emotion of anger flaring visibly. "Then you need protection," Kalen stated calmly. "And I need whatever information is on that scanner." Lyra stared at him, clearly calculating her options. Finally, she nodded. "I'll show you what's on it, but not here. Somewhere secure. And I keep possession of it." Kalen considered this. His KRYLL instincts pushed him to simply take the device by force. His physical superiority would make it trivial. But if Lyra was telling the truth, forcing her cooperation might result in lost information, or worse, push her to destroy the device. "Agreed," he said finally. "We'll go to a secure location." As they left Lyra's quarters under guard, Kalen received an update from the forensics team. "Sir, Preliminary analysis confirms the modified hypospray contains a neurotoxin matching the one found in Dr. Thorne's system. Species-specific, targeting human neurochemistry. Any idea who could create such a toxin? Kalen asked. It would require advanced biochemical knowledge, specifically of human physiology, the technician replied, and access to restricted compounds. Kalen glanced at Lyra, who had gone pale. Thank you. Maintain the search for the intruders. He led Lyra to a secure interrogation room deep within the security section, ordering additional guards at all access points. Once inside, he activated the room's privacy protocols. No recordings, no external monitoring. Show me what's on the scanner, he ordered. Lyra hesitated, then activated the device. Instead of medical readings, the small screen displayed an encrypted data interface. Her fingers moved across it rapidly, entering a complex sequence. Thorne was paranoid about security, she explained. He believed someone was accessing his research without authorization. That's why he modified this scanner. Nobody would think to look at a medical device for classified research data. The screen changed, displaying a series of molecular models and simulation results. Lyra navigated through them with practiced ease. This is what Thorne discovered, she said, pointing to a particular simulation. The Xylos microorganisms can be programmed, at a molecular level, to interact with specific materials. They can strengthen, weaken, or completely transform matter. Weaponizable, Kalen stated. Yes, she admitted. But that's not why he was killed. Look at this. She brought up another file, security logs from Laboratory 7, but more complete than those Kalen had accessed earlier. These showed unauthorized access attempts originating from within the station's own systems. Someone, with high-level security clearance, was trying to access his research, Lyra explained. Thorne traced it back to a terminal in the administrative section, but couldn't identify the user. Kalen studied the logs. The access attempts weren't from Volscian systems, as he'd initially suspected. They came from human-designed interfaces. Thorne believed humans were trying to steal his research, he asked. Lyra's expression was grim. Not just any humans. He suspected a group of extremists who believe humanity needs to develop superiority over other species. They call themselves human ascendancy. Thorne had encountered them before on Earth. They've infiltrated scientific institutions, corporations, even some governmental bodies. Kalen's ridge pulsed with skepticism. Human supremacists? Here, on a multi-species station. Why not? It's the perfect place to gather intelligence, access research, maybe even sabotage interspecies relations. She scrolled through more data. Thorne found evidence that they've been working with a modified version of the Xylos microbes. He believed they were planning to weaponize it, but selectively, a weapon that would target non-human physiologies while leaving humans unharmed. Like the neurotoxin that killed him, Kalen noted, but designed to work in reverse. Exactly. When he got too close to exposing them, they eliminated him. And now they're after me. Kalen considered this theory. It seemed implausible. Human extremists operating under the noses of station security, developing sophisticated bioweapons. Yet the evidence was compelling. The neurotoxin was specifically designed for human physiology, suggesting whoever created it had intimate knowledge of humans. The security breaches originated from human interfaces, and Thorne had been killed in a way that suggested inside knowledge of his laboratory and routines. If what you're saying is true, he said finally, these extremists have significant resources and influence within the station, possibly even within security. Lyra nodded grimly. That's what Thorne believed. It's why he didn't report his suspicions officially. He didn't know who to trust. Why trust me now? Kalen asked. Because you're a KRYLL, she replied simply. Your species values order and truth above politics. And you're not human, which means you're potentially a target of their weapon. You have every reason to stop them. Kalen felt an unfamiliar sensation, something akin to respect for this human's reasoning. She had assessed him based on KRYLL cultural values, not human assumptions. It was unexpectedly perceptive. We need evidence that will stand up to scrutiny, he said. Not just Thorne's suspicions. There's more, Lyra said, accessing another section of the device. Thorn created a failsafe. He modified a specific set of the Xylo's microorganisms to neutralize the weaponized strain if it's ever released. It's essentially an antidote, but it needs to be activated correctly. Ow, that's the problem, she admitted. He didn't fully explain it to me. He said something about the ordinary made extraordinary, that the key was hidden in plain sight in his personal effects. Kalen remembered the small objects on Thorn's desk, items that had seemed trivial, sentimental, human keepsakes. The ordinary made extraordinary, he repeated, like a geological tool modified into a weapon. Lyra's eyes widened with realization. Or a medical scanner turned into a data vault. To humans, everything is a weapon, Kalen quoted, or a tool. Their discussion was interrupted by an emergency alert that blared throughout the station. The automated system announced, "Containment breach in Laboratory Section 7. All personnel evacuate. Emergency protocols activated." Kalen accessed the security feed on his communicator. Laboratory 7, Thorn's lab, was shown surrounded by emergency response teams in full containment gear. The laboratory itself was sealed, but internal sensors showed a foreign substance spreading through the air circulation system. "They've released something," Lyra said, her voice tight with fear. "The weaponized microorganisms, most likely." "How fast will it spread?" Kalen demanded. "If it's airborne, it will reach all sections within hours. The station's life support systems are interconnected." Her hands moved rapidly over the scanner. According to Thorn's notes, this weapon won't kill immediately. It's designed to gradually weaken structural integrity at a molecular level, both in materials and in non-human biological tissues. The station itself would eventually fail, Kalen realized, along with every non-human aboard. Yes, it would look like a catastrophic system failure, not an attack. By the time anyone identified the true cause, it would be too late. Kalen made a swift decision. "We need to find Thorn's failsafe and activate it. Now." Lyra nodded. "His quarters. That's where his personal effects would be." "Those quarters have been sealed since his death," Kalen noted. "We'll need to break security protocols to access them." "Is that a problem for you?" she asked, one eyebrow raised. Kalen felt an unfamiliar urge to smile at her defiance. Not under these circumstances. As they moved through the station, the emergency protocols worked in their favor, clearing corridors and disabling certain security measures to facilitate evacuation. Kalen noted with concern that the Volscian sections of the station were experiencing the most severe symptoms of what was being reported as a systems failure: environmental controls malfunctioning, structural supports weakening. Not coincidental, he thought. The Volscians, with their exoskeletal biology, would be particularly vulnerable to something that attacked structural integrity. Thorn's quarters were located in the human residential section, which showed no signs of malfunction. Kalen used his security override to access the sealed room, aware that he was violating protocols. If his suspicions proved unfounded, his career would likely be over. Inside, Thorn's quarters were simply furnished but cluttered with personal items. Books, actual physical ones, a human eccentricity, small sculptures, items collected from various worlds. The space felt distinctly human in its disorder, every surface holding objects with no apparent purpose beyond the aesthetic or sentimental. "What are we looking for?" Kalen asked, overwhelmed by the possibilities. Lyra moved through the space with purpose. Something significant to him, something he handled often, something that might contain or activate the failsafe microorganisms. Kalen watched as she examined various objects, considering each one. His KRYLL mind, trained to see patterns and assess threats, found it difficult to attribute value to these random human possessions. How could any of them be important enough to serve as the key to saving the station? "There," Lyra said suddenly, pointing to a small object on Thorn's desk. "That puzzle cube. He always kept it with him in the lab. Said it helped him think." The object was a simple mechanical puzzle, consisting of interlocking pieces that could be arranged in various configurations. Primitive, almost childish by KRYLL standards. A toy. Kalen asked skeptically. Not just any toy, Lyra explained, picking it up. It's made from materials harvested on Xylos. Thorn had it custom manufactured. He said the material had unique properties. She manipulated the cube, fingers working the pieces into a new configuration. Nothing happened. It has to be more complex than that, Kalen said, studying the cube more carefully. He noticed microscopic patterns etched into each piece, not decorative, but precise like circuit pathways. These markings, he began. Their molecular guide, Lyra realized, examining them more closely. Instructions for the microorganisms embedded in the puzzle itself. But they need to be arranged in the correct sequence. She began to manipulate the puzzle again, this time more methodically, studying each piece before placing it. Kalen watched, fascinated despite himself by the human's problem-solving approach, intuitive rather than strictly logical, yet effective. His communicator pulsed with an urgent message. "Chief Kalen," came Captain Gross' voice. "Report to command immediately. The station is experiencing critical failures in multiple sections." "I'm investigating a potential cause," Kalen replied. "I'll report when I have more information." "That wasn't a request," Gross snapped. "The Volskian sections are suffering structural integrity failures. They're blaming human sabotage. Tell them to evacuate," Kalen said firmly. "I believe this is a deliberate attack. I'm pursuing a solution." He terminated the communication, knowing he had just defied a direct order. His KRYLL conditioning made such disobedience physically uncomfortable, but the evidence before him was clear. This was no ordinary systems failure. Lyra continued working on the puzzle, muttering to herself as she tried different configurations. Kalen's sensitive hearing picked up a sound in the corridor outside, footsteps approaching stealthily, not the heavy tread of evacuation. "Someone's coming," he warned, moving to position himself between Lyra and the door. The door mechanism began to override, someone forcing access from outside. Kalen drew his standard-issue pulse weapon, aiming at the entrance. The door slid open to reveal a human male, middle-aged, wearing a science division uniform. He was accompanied by two others, similarly dressed. All three held modified tools that Kalen immediately recognized as improvised weapons. "Dr. Ellis," Lyra said, her voice cold. "I should have known. You were always so interested in Thorn's research." The human, Ellis, smiled thinly. "Lyra, and Security Chief Kalen. How convenient to find you both here. You're responsible for the containment breach," Kalen stated. "It wasn't a question, a necessary demonstration," Ellis replied, his tone reasonable, almost professorial. "The Concord needs to understand humanity's potential. We've been underestimated, relegated to advisory roles when we should be leading. With the Xylos microorganisms, we can ensure human preeminence for generations." "By killing everyone else?" Lyra demanded, still working on the puzzle behind Kalen's protective stance. "Regrettable but necessary," Ellis said with a shrug. "Evolution has always involved competition. We're simply accelerating the process." Kalen kept his weapon trained on Ellis. "You killed Dr. Thorn. He left us no choice. He refused to see the opportunity his discovery represented. Instead, he wanted to use it for ecological restoration." Ellis's face showed genuine disgust. "Such waste of potential." "You were there when he died," Lyra said, her voice thick with emotion. "You were his colleague. He trusted you. That trust gave me access," Ellis acknowledged without remorse. "Now, I'll need that puzzle cube. Thorn's failsafe is the only thing that might interfere with our demonstration." "This station is dying," Kalen said. "Your demonstration will kill thousands, including humans." "Acceptable losses," Ellis replied. "Those humans who survive will be heroes, having endured a tragic station failure. The perfect cover for our real work." Kalen was about to respond when Ellis made a sudden movement, throwing something small and metallic toward them. Kalen's enhanced reflexes allowed him to swat it away, a small explosive device, modified from standard equipment. It detonated harmlessly against a far wall. The distraction was enough for Ellis's companions to rush forward. Kalen engaged them, his KRYLL strength giving him an advantage in close quarters. He dispatched one with a precise strike, disarming the second, but Ellis used the confusion to circle around toward Lyra. Lyra, still working frantically on the puzzle, saw Ellis approaching. With surprising speed, she grabbed a stylus from Thorne's desk and stabbed it toward Ellis's arm. The improvised weapon found its mark, penetrating deep into his forearm. Ellis howled in pain, but kept coming, reaching for the puzzle with his uninjured hand. Kalen, still engaged with the second attacker, couldn't intervene. At that moment, Lyra completed the puzzle's configuration. The cube emitted a soft, blue glow, and a fine mist dispersed from microscopic openings in its structure. No! Ellis lunged for the puzzle, but it was too late. The mist was already spreading, drifting toward the room's ventilation system. Kalen subdued the remaining attacker and moved quickly to restrain Ellis, who was still trying to reach the puzzle despite his injury. "The failsafe is activated," Kalen told him. "Your weapon is neutralized." Ellis's face contorted with rage and disbelief. "You don't understand what you're doing. Humanity needs this advantage. Humanity needs cooperation, not dominance," Lyra countered, holding the now inert puzzle. That's what Thorne believed. The station's alert system updated. Containment protocols successful. Unknown substance neutralized. All personnel remain in current locations for further instructions. Ellis sagged and Kalen's grip defeated. "You've doomed us to mediocrity," he muttered. Kalen activated his communicator. "Security team to Dr. Thorne's quarters. I have 3 suspects in custody for the murder of Dr. Thorne and the attempted sabotage of the station." In the aftermath, the station slowly returned to normal operations. The Volscian areas required extensive repairs, but there were no casualties. Analysis confirmed that the weaponized microorganisms had been neutralized by Thorne's failsafe, which had reprogrammed them to harmless inertia. Ellis and his co-conspirators were detained, their network of human ascendancy sympathizers on the station exposed and dismantled. Captain Groke, after reviewing the evidence, grudgingly acknowledged that Kalen's actions, while unorthodox, had saved the station and prevented an interspecies diplomatic disaster. Kalen stood at the viewport in his quarters, watching the slow rotation of Xylos below the station. Behind him, on his usually empty desk, sat a small collection of items recovered from the investigation: stylus, datapad, specimen container, and a puzzle cube, all cataloged as evidence. His door chimed, announcing a visitor. "Enter," he called, turning from the view. Lyra stepped inside, looking tired but composed. "I've been cleared to continue Dr. Thorne's research," she said without preamble. "Under supervision, of course." "A wise precaution," Kalen replied. "I wanted to thank you," she continued, "for believing me, for helping stop them." Kalen inclined his head slightly. "I was following the evidence." "No," she said with a small smile. "You were challenging your own assumptions. That's harder than following evidence." He couldn't deny the truth in her observation. "I learned something valuable from this case," he admitted, "about human ingenuity and about my own limitations." "To humans, everything is a weapon," Lyra quoted. "But that's not the whole truth. To humans, everything has potential, for harm or for good. It depends on the intent behind the use." She gestured to the items on his desk. A stylus can take notes or stab an attacker. A puzzle can entertain or save a station. And a security chief can enforce rules or seek truth, Kalen added, surprising himself with a personal acknowledgement. Lyra nodded, then reached into her pocket. "I brought you something. From Thorne's personal effects. The executor of his estate thought you should have it." She handed him a small object, another puzzle cube, similar to the one that had contained the failsafe, but simpler in design. "He used to say it helped him think outside conventional patterns," she explained. "Given your profession, that might be useful." Kalen took the cube, turning it in his hands. His first instinct was to dismiss it as a trivial human trinket. But now, after everything that had happened, he saw it differently, as a tool for expanding perception, for challenging assumptions. "Thank you," he said, setting it carefully on his desk. After Lyra departed, Kalen returned to the viewport. Below, Xylos continued its eternal rotation, indifferent to the dramas playing out in the station above. He picked up the puzzle cube again, manipulating its pieces thoughtfully. To humans, everything is a weapon. The phrase had new meaning for him now, not just a warning about human capacity for violence, but an acknowledgement of their adaptability, their ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. It was dangerous, yes, but also remarkable. He set the cube down and looked at the collection of simple objects before him. In the right hands with the right intent, any of them could become something more, a weapon, a tool, a key. The potential was always there, waiting to be unlocked. For the first time, Kalen looked at the universe around him through new eyes, more cautious, perhaps, but also more appreciative of the complexity he had previously dismissed.